Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Prime Minister Mottley of Barbados makes no apologies for increasing taxes on soft drinks and other sugar-laced beverages. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 2nd May 2022. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. The Caribbean's foremost leader, Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, urges all citizens of Barbados to take their health seriously. More in this Barbados Today news item.
Prime Minister Mia Mottley makes no apologies for increasing taxes on soft drinks and sweetened beverages, as she repeats concern that the unhealthy lifestyles of many Barbadians are leading to a prevalence of non-communicable diseases. Urging Barbadians to do better, Mottley said even though government was playing its part by expanding its range of services to provide better health care, people were still engaging in unhealthy practices that were putting their lives at risk. The Prime Minister's comments came following a tour of the Maria Holder Diabetes Center for the Caribbean in Warrens this morning.
If I doubted the correctness of my action in the budget last month about putting the additional taxes on soft drinks and sweetened beverages, I do not doubt it and I do not apologize for it. Because if you take the picture of that board inside there in the dietitian's office, that shows how much sugar is actually every bottle of sweet drink, a certain size of juice, or even Morbi, then you begin to understand. Nobody's telling you can't use it, but we're telling you that if you use it in moderation and anchor it with exercise.
The Director General of the World Health Organization lauded government for the role it is playing in looking after the health of its citizens.
Your commitment to alleviating poverty and improving the quality of life of vulnerable populations through a comprehensive approach is an inspiring model from which other countries can learn. We support your vision to expand this approach to other countries in the region through your collaboration with PAHO WHO.
Minister of Finance in Trinidad and Tobago, Colm Imbert, has once again justified the partial removal of the fuel subsidy. Minister Imbert, speaking on hard decisions aired on TTT, said if the purchasing price for fuel is $8 billion and it's being sold to consumers for $5 billion, there is a $3 billion deficit to be made up.
Minister of Finance Colm Imbert has once again justified the partial removal of the fuel subsidy. Minister Imbert, speaking on hard decisions aired on TTT, said if the purchasing price for fuel is $8 billion and it's being sold to consumers for $5 billion, there is a $3 billion deficit to be made up.
What is relevant is where are you finding the $2 or $3 billion from to make up the difference between the cost of purchasing the fuel and the price at which you're selling the fuel. And none of the commentators are saying where they're getting that from. Are they going to increase value-added tax, for example? Where's the money going to come from? Are they going to increase your income tax rate? Are they going to reduce the personal allowance? Are they going to increase duties on imported goods? Where are they getting the $2 or $3 billion from? They have avoided that question.
Minister Imbert said the monies accrued from the removal of the fuel subsidy will be of benefit to the country.
Subsidize part of it, so there's not too much of a shock on the system. But we also feel that we should take some of the expenditure and apply it to other things on the development program, as I told you, on patching potholes, on fixing roads, on cleaning drains, on making sure that we avoid any flooding that might come in the oncoming rainy season. on the health sector.
A former finance minister is blaming the cocaine trade for what she sees as Trinidad and Tobago's demise economically and otherwise. Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News reports.
Former Finance Minister Karen Nunes Teixeira was tasked to present on the economics of post-independence Trinidad and Tobago as part of the University of the West Indies' National Conversation series. And she vented her frustration at the hapless state of the country 60 years later.
And the reason why the country is hopeless, Dr. Tuari, as you know, because both parties are seen as being corrupt. And therefore, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And what allows them to sustain their nonsense is because they use the race and the religion as a separator of two groups. But I am telling you from the inside, that is what is destroying our country.
The present government, she explains, has left citizens with well-placed trust issues.
If you're drilling, how do you explain that your senior counsel, highly respected, is telling you go to court and challenge that thing? I had read judgments. Why won't you go, but you pay him $100 million? There's no trust in this government for good reason.
A Manning loyalist, Nunes Teixeira, did not withhold from her list of this administration's missteps.
He moved him from the from housing, put him in tourism, then suddenly became the Minister of Housing for about 8 months. During that period, signed this a framework agreement for the Chinese who had been blacklisted to build 5,000 houses with Chinese labor and pay them in US. And then pretend he didn't know about it until the Freedom of Information Act was forced, and then he claimed he didn't know. There's no trust in this government.
And while there's talk about rodents and cockroaches, unprincipled practices, she says, occur in the highest of offices.
If you have an AG that had to recuse himself 46 times, how are you going to have him as Attorney General? Because the recusal means conflict of interest. And he sat down there and 46 recusals, and he was still sitting down there.
She declared that Trinidad and Tobago is a corrupt country.
We should not have gambling in this country. We have too much money laundering. EU has blacklisted us. You saw they had a meeting in Barbados with Mia and the Prime Minister about de-risking and the bank, the correspondent bank. De-risking meaning taking you off completely. You see the Prime Minister has run off to Washington for 4 days to discuss that topic. This country is a corrupt country.
But how did the country, at one point classified as a high-income country, sink to such a low in her eyes?
If people want to pretend that they do not understand that at the root of this corruption in this country is the transshipment of cocaine that is able to give people power to open up businesses, for the businesses to fail, for the businesses to reopen, to have the politicians jump in at their call. The Procurement Act is a perfect example of the level of corruption in this country. And yes, it's deliberate.
She refers to her former political leader, a finance minister himself from 2001 to 2007, and says Patrick Manning wanted to eliminate this main barrier to economic diversity, the transshipment of cocaine.
I'm telling you, he called names. And when I see some of those names in the top position in this country, I am sure about my views of this government. That's why, by the way, they didn't offer me a position. I wouldn't have taken it because it would have fired me.
As Finance Minister Nunes Teixeira says, attempts were made on 3 occasions to compromise her integrity. Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Commonwealth Secretary General Baroness Patricia Scotland says God will decide as she faces a challenge for the post from Jamaica's Foreign Minister Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith. Baroness Scotland was speaking in an exclusive interview with ABS's Garfield Burford from Nairobi, Kenya last week, where she was attending the Commonwealth Education Ministers Conference. The vote for the 54-member grouping's top post will take place in Rwanda's capital, Kigali, in June.
Are you confident that you will prevail in June in Kigali when the elections are held?
Well, all I can do is to put the evidence before our member states. I've been given such a warm support and reflection. So I think I do what I always do. I put my faith in God and I say that God will decide and we will see. But I'm very determined to continue to serve our Commonwealth, all 2.6 billion. I'm pleased that there are even more countries knocking on the door today wanting to join our Commonwealth. And I think that may be a testament for what we've managed to do to turn the whole Commonwealth round.
At least 6 of the Caribbean territories record wanting out from entertaining the Queen of England as head of state.
Out of the 14 countries beyond the United Kingdom that retain Queen Elizabeth II as head of state, at least 6 in the Caribbean want out. Officials in at least 6 countries in the Caribbean, where Britain's Queen Elizabeth II is head of state, have signaled their intent to remove the monarch as sovereign. These countries follow Barbados, which removed the Queen as its head of state to become the region's newest republic in November 2021. The calls made over the course of the past 2 months have come as members of the British royal family made 2 separate trips to the Caribbean region this year, drawing protests in every stop. Prince Edward and Sophie, Countess of Wessex, will wrap up their leg of a 6-day Caribbean trip Thursday after visiting Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. A planned stop in Grenada was postponed, Buckingham Palace said in a statement. Prince William and Kate Duchess of Cambridge visited Belize, Jamaica, and the Bahamas in March. Local protesters in Belize and Jamaica called for a formal apology by the royals for their family's role in the enslavement and brutalization of Africans and demanded reparations. An official has been appointed to oversee the process of decoupling in Jamaica, reported The Guardian, and the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gatson Brown, told Edward and Sophie in a meeting that his country intended to become a republic one day. All 6 Caribbean countries have indicated they plan to remove the Queen as their head of state. Belize, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Kitts and Nevis were colonized by British. But when they each gained independence from Britain during the second half of the 20th century, Elizabeth retained her post as sovereign, and each country remained a member of Commonwealth, a grouping of 54 former British colonies.
Meanwhile, there is growing concern in Jamaica relating to the number of children out of school and getting involved in crime. O'Shane Masters of TVJ News reports.
For some school-aged children across the island, particularly out west, it's all about the money. This was Justice Minister Delroy Chuck at a child justice training seminar earlier this week.
When you hear that you can't find 30,000 children who are not attending schools, what has happened? It means that our parents really are not looking after their children. Yes, the schools would like them to come, but the schools don't have the resources to go into the communities to get them to school. So we have to depend on the parents and the community.
The issue is not new, but was brought into sharp focus following the resumption of face-to-face classes and the revelation that some students are involved in the illicit activities. A troubling trend, says children's advocate Diane Gordon-Harrison.
That for me is not only troubling in terms of a child protection perspective, but it speaks about the ill-advised morals and values that our children are being exposed to. For me, the essence of a scammer is somebody who is dishonest, who is a cheat, and who is a fraud. And so if you're aspiring to that as a child, it means that something is happening within the socialization of that particular child, whether in the home or the community.
Hundreds remain unaccounted for, while other students have made it clear They have no intention of returning to school.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.